Welcome to Main Street Minds with your host, Amish Munshi. This is where industry leaders and seasoned pros share their secrets to success beyond limits. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to Main Street Minds. Today we have a very special guest, Chris Stauffer, over here with us, all the way from Massachusetts, and we are in for a treat today. We have everything that we are doing, right? Everything related to the podcast itself. We are going to dive deep into what is happening new with the world of AI and podcasting. This is, I think, the core of what I love to do, a mix of taking technology and marketing and implementing it for various industries. So without further delay, let me welcome Chris. Chris, thanks for joining today, and please introduce yourself and share your journey with us.
Thank you, Amish. I'm Chris Stauffer, and I have been in AI since the 1990s. I grew up in the Midwest, in Minnesota, and I went to undergrad at Northwestern, and there I had kind of a crisis of faith. I had a triple major, computer vision, biomedical engineering, and computer engineering, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was even pre-med, but I kind of fell in love with computer vision. It was kind of an unsolved problem. It really interested me. I had a passion for it, and I worked with a professor there, Paul Cooper, who was one of the early people in computer vision, and kind of decided that was my passion. And from there, I went to the MIT AI lab, back when it was the AI lab. Now it's CSAIL. And we basically, I started doing computer vision there. And I think I'm most well known there for a paper that I wrote that has over 10,000 citations called, basically on the idea of background subtraction. So basically taking a video of a scene and figuring out what the moving elements are. And that was important for a lot of the things that came in computer vision. So it was kind of a flag in the sand for early computer vision where you were analyzing real things in real life. And from there, I basically decided to stay on for a postdoc for a few years because I was having a lot of fun, and the stuff I was working on was noteworthy. So they kept me on for a few years, and I basically finished there, and I considered academia. To give a little perspective, back then, computer vision was kind of a fringe field. Like, it wasn't like it is today. And all that changed in the next 20 or so years from when I left MIT. But in order to be able to keep working with, the smartest people, the academics in the world, I went to a company called AlphaTech that basically was an MIT startup. They were a small business when I joined them, but they were growing quickly. They were doing defense work essentially, and we worked with some of the best academics, in the world on basically DARPA and IARPA programs.
Mhm.
So back in the day, that was how you had to do computer vision, and these kind of forethinking thoughts. Uh,
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, it's not the same case. There's the FANG companies are the ones with the resources, and those are where a lot of the magic is happening. But back in the day, we worked with UMD, and USC and Oxford and um, Brown University and all the Massachusetts, universities, and some of the top people in AI. Worked with Antonio Torralba and Bill Freeman and many people who are kind of foundational in the field of computer vision, which I think of as kind of one of the core areas that basically helped make the breakthroughs that make AI what it is today. And so I worked, and the DARPA cycle was basically, someone at DARPA would get a an unsolved, they call them DARPA hard problems. They would think of something that basically has never been done before, like, this is how the internet and a lot of
Hmm.
big revolutions came around. And they would start a program and they'd get a big block of funding, $10 million or something. And they would put out a call for proposals, and we would basically go and find the best academics we could, pull together a team and propose something that had never been done before. And send in our proposal. And if we got accepted, we would have like 3 years to work on a really hard problem.
Yeah.
I worked on problems like, um, you know, tracking cars throughout a large city, just using surveillance cameras, trying to figure out which car was which car across
Yeah.
a network of cameras, 3D object recognition from LiDAR arrays. And one of the big opportunities we had at BAE was to work on kind of wide area surveillance, where we essentially BAE won a contract to build a essentially flying sensor that had 200 and some odd sensors included in it, and could basically cover, say, the area of Cambridge, Massachusetts at a level where they could potentially track individual people. They'd be about a pixel long.
Hmm.
So
Interesting. Yeah.
but there were a lot of interesting technical challenges there. Basically doing things at scale, running trackers across all these focal arrays and integrating the tracking across them. And every program had something like that. But at the end of the program, the funding ended, and then a new program
Yeah.
would pop up. But
Yeah.
that was how I kind of kept in the field in that time. I think if I had gone to industry then, I would have been kind of pushed into much more practical problems. And I'm glad I did, because basically after that, I went and did my own company, uh,
Hmm.
because working at on DARPA programs at a large contractor, there's a large overhead, so it's hard to get kind of really
Yeah.
prospective programs started. So I had one that I wanted to do, which was basically just looking at cameras around the world and not tracking any individuals or anything like that, but kind of looking at patterns of life, like, how's the traffic today versus yesterday, and how's it changing and things like that. So I wasn't trying to figure out who's who or anything like that, but
Yeah.
basically working on the technology. Basically looked at the patterns in a few dozen cameras around the world, um, and could see like if the traffic changed or if there was a
Hmm.
special event or things like that. And really, the goal there was for me to kind of break the abstraction barrier, to like learn something that wasn't just a continuous you know like value that you're trying to analyze, and really understand that there are these patterns, there's the underlying model of them, and if you can build that model sufficiently, then you can do things like anomaly detection, and it's meaningful and it's explainable. And back in those days, there wasn't as much that you could do that was explainable. A lot of AI was, working on a very specific problem, and we were using things like projections of spaces and, very, very simple models. And what we were missing was attention. There's a kind of famous paper now, "Attention is all you need." And
Yeah.
that, together with the yeah, convolutional neural networks and things like that, which are a form of attention essentially,
Yeah.
is what kind of changed our field.
Yeah. And approx which year was this?
I would say it came in like 2015 or
Okay.
so. Um, so I was doing the DARPA thing. I did my own company, and then I moved
Mhm.
on to I went to Facebook for a couple years,
Okay.
and that was fun. There were a lot of interesting challenges there doing things at scale. I don't think people realize that if you want to look at pictures, even just So we were looking at moderation and misinformation, and we were doing it just leading into COVID. So it was a very interesting time,
Yeah.
very interesting set of problems we were working on there. But I didn't realize before going there the sheer number. There's like thousands, maybe even tens of thousands at peak times of images uploaded per second.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy.
So they have these huge farms, and if you want to make something, it's got to be efficient, it's got to be concise, and it's got to be parallelizable across a large number of machines. And even then, it's not possible for them to look at everything.
Yeah. And it's like crazy how my one upload doesn't end up on somebody else's profile.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think anything like that. At least I don't think I do a lot of posting, but relatively more than average. But I don't think I've had any issues like with any major bugs, at least.
hmm yeah. So we there's the obvious things that they do for moderation. They look for content that's not appropriate for minors and things like that. Just things that shouldn't be there. And even there were some interesting challenges. So obviously we don't want pictures of minors that are in states of undress.
Hmm.
But we had a group of mothers that were really upset, and they all banded together, and they basically came to Facebook and said, "Hey, my son's pictures are not getting through because they had sons that like to do sports and stuff in their shorts and stuff, without
Yeah.
shirts on, and they all had really long hair, and
Yeah.
a lot of I think it's really if anyone watching this can understand this one thing, I think it's really important for people to understand the idea of receiver operating curve and ROC curve. Any AI problem where we're trying to make a decision, um, it's not a matter of just getting it better and better and getting it right. There is always a trade-off between false positives and
Oh,
false
yeah.
negatives.
Yeah.
So, in order, you can make things better and you can improve, the operating point on that curve, but you can never get rid of false positives or false negatives without
Yeah.
horrendous consequences. So we were facing this situation where, we could, we had it to five nines and stuff, getting rid of everything, 99.9999,
Hmm.
getting rid of anything bad. But we couldn't try to, retrain and get some of those images let through and stuff like that. But and that was just one concern. Uh,
It's amazing the kind of challenges that come up, right? When once we start, we are like, oh, this thing should work, irrespective of how much testing we do. When we take a technology, it passes all our possible scenarios, but when we put it in production on the field, still there once things go at scale, things work a little bit differently.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's something, if you're going to work in the field of AI, you have to get comfortable with that.
Yeah,
The idea that these aren't solvable problems. You can do better and better, but you're always basically it's human. And I think one of the best things the industry is doing now is looking at human performance levels on the tasks that they're trying to solve, because people are like, the car made a mistake and it ran into someone, and it's not fair to evaluate a self-driving system as to how
yeah,
perfect it is when people do make mistakes all the time.
yeah,
My wife had someone just turn across the lane. They were drunk and they turned
yeah,
in front of her, and there was an accident. And
yeah. Yeah, I think we have come we just that the computers were digital and there was always like correct or incorrect, like, but there is fuzzy stuff right in the middle, right?
yeah,
Saying and we have to start accepting that computers may not always be one plus one may not always be two. Going forward, we are expecting computers to do something more than what they were uh, originally thought about for doing.
yeah,
And but we are asking them to do little more sensible, emotional, little more be a little more like human, but then they will also be more like humans.
yeah. So Facebook was interesting. Another thing we did there was we looked at essentially um, Getty and Reuters, the news feeds. Facebook paid to have access, not to use them, but just to have access to them.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically brought them in on an hourly basis and tried to figure out, essentially the themes that were
Mm-hmm.
happening. So this was during Trump time. So Trump would tweet something and there would be a big guffaw about something. Or, some actor would say something, or basically the challenge at a company like Facebook and the social media companies is they want to catch something before it goes viral.
Yeah.
So the challenge is pushing that threshold down so that you can catch something as early as possible. Because once something goes viral, it's an adversarial game you're playing with people. People will make their own memes, they'll change the wording. If they get something blocked, they'll try something, they'll put lines in it to kind of confuse our algorithms and things like that. You've probably seen that on your social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah.
Um, but if you can catch it early enough, then there's a chance to, get a on top of it before, something really horrible out there is
Yeah.
projected. Um, and that's kind of part of the game they have to play. So
Yeah.
we basically would look at, news stories in the world that were kind of gaining momentum, and then we would look on the platform for things that were gaining momentum, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, basically queue those up for fact checkers to take a look at and see what it was that was making them go viral and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That is very interesting. And then tell us a little bit more about how all of this led to where you are today now. Uh
Yeah, so I did that for a couple years, and then a friend of mine, Nate Fry, Nathan Fry, basically contacted me. So he worked with me at BAE Systems for a while, and he left and went to Google for 10 years and worked on video processing and automated ads and kind of things like an understanding of the viral moments and things, if your phone tells you about,
mhm.
you know, like the birthday party you had pictures of 5 years ago for your son,
Yeah.
something like that. He was working in that general area, and he decided he wanted to go and start a company. And he had a line on some people who thought his idea was great, and he just needed someone on the AI side of things uh, to be able to work on kind of some of the core technologies and understanding um, the video and basically giving us, good features to work with to be able to do the task. And the task was essentially to create a editing assistant. So
Mm-hmm.
the company was Open Video Exploration. We've kind of rebranded it as our primary platform right now, which is Your Move. And the idea is it's where you can take your media and your ideas and create your own video products. Um, and there's kind of three themes involved in what we're doing. One is it's your media, so we're not trying to attack the problem of completely generative platforms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think some of them have kind of stalled out at about 4 seconds. They can make good videos and they're really
Yeah.
interesting, but they're about 4 seconds long, and they take, some platforms cost like 50 cents a second. So, and you might get a 10-second video, that's $5 right there, and you might think it's horrible. Um,
Yeah.
so, the infrastructure investment there was more than we wanted, and we wanted it to be focused on your material because we think the future of social media is um, and influencing and things like that is in building a brand which is centered around something unique. And
Mhm.
I think if you go the complete gen route, it's going to be a little difficult to come up with something unique and compelling. Um,
Yeah.
so the second aspect is we want it to be to break kind of the stranglehold that Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro and the
Yeah.
megalith tools have, and make it prompt based. So
Hmm.
conversational, where we're leveraging the large language models and basically allowing you to have a conversation like you would with an editor. Say
Yeah.
add something here, I don't know what, or
Yeah.
remove this scene, or basically whatever you want. And we've got a pretty good core on that technology. And and
Yeah.
the
And
the last aspect was we wanted to be focus on, so your theme is personalization. Uh,
yeah.
so when you go in the first time and you edit something, it might take a little while to get it the way you want. But the next podcast you do, your branding is kind of the same. A lot of things are similar. We want
Yeah.
to be able to leverage kind of personal models. And also, we're working on things to be able to tag the things you care about, because
Hmm.
a lot of it's kind of breaking from the idea of these kind of universal foundational models.
Hmm.
Uh, and because, you don't really care about, oh, there's a car there. You care about, oh, this is this car, that I'm going to
Yeah.
be talking about today. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about another car. And the next day I'm going to talk about another car. And these large language models don't know any of that. But a
Yeah.
different influencer might not care about differentiating cars. They might care about the can of soda that they, talk about every day, or you know, the whatever their primary thing is. So we want to give you tools to be able to add those elements into the conversation, so you can refer to, for you, it might be you versus your guests.
Yeah.
To be able to say, you know, give me the add here the clip where I said such and such, and I should be meaningful in that sense.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then is this like is there like earlier you did mention if it's generated content, it is very resource intensive. How and but if it's like some custom like existing video and that has to be modified, how resource intensive is that?
Um, we so I think that some of the most expensive things we have right now are some of the analytics can get expensive. If you want to, we have some people who are they'll go and they're editors, and their idea is they want to do basically take all their media and do a rough cut and be able to ask for different things out of like a 12-hour set of like 4K, 120 frames per second video. So that could make the analytics expensive, but the analytics are generally pretty, for social media and things like this podcast, are pretty reasonable. I would say, and the rendering we have, Nate has done a great job at making rendering work really well. So I would say some of the more expensive things we're putting in now are kind of the generative aspects, like if you
Hmm.
have, a picture of.
Okay. Nice. Yeah,
So
because sometimes when we are recording, it can get a little monotonous, like saying, okay, there's like two people talking for 30 minutes, not much is moving, or or we'll have to shoot some very expensive B-rolls and like add different content and put things together. But I think that partial generative aspects of adding things to the conversation will be very, very useful.
yeah. Yeah, so the two of us got together. He's the CEO. He's in LA. He's got some influencer connections
Mhm.
with some of the studios out there as well. And there's some other interest. I won't go into too much
Sure.
detail. And I'm in Boston, and I'm kind of the academic liaison, and I'm keeping track of the technology and implementing our core technology.
Yeah.
And we started pretty much blank slate. I hadn't done a startup before. I've done like everything else I wanted to do. This is a new experience. Um,
Mhm.
we decided on Amazon as a platform. We got a credit through the funding that we got, and we had basically about 3 years of running room at our current burn, and
Hmm.
we have about a year left, and we're in public beta. And
Nice.
we
Yeah.
built on Amazon basically from the ground up, the complete platform, uh,
Okay.
so you can log in, upload your media, it gets analyzed, you can look at the analytics, you can retrieve things, you can start a session, bring your media in and edit things and then export it to.
Yeah. And where are you seeing the most interest right now with this? Like, is it mostly podcasts or like other verticals or other people also interested?
Uh, Podcasts, I think is an interesting area because it's growing, and a lot of podcasts out there. Basically, podcasts used to be a person with a microphone, or a few,
Oh yeah, audio.
maybe with a guest. It was all audio,
Yeah.
no video aspects to it. But in order to drive engagement, people are learning a lot about, um, you know, making even just the simplest video. It helps with your branding. It helps with, basically people will see you in the list, and they'll recognize, kind of your branding and things like that. And that's something we definitely like to do. But we also want to work on just general editing as well. So
Okay.
there are lots of editors out there that are, doing different projects or doing advertising or things like that. And Nate has some experience in the advertising areas and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think one of the things that is happening is I use even within real estate, I use platforms that provide the content, but then it doesn't have any personalization of me in there. So they just
Mhm.
slap my photo or a generic video, just merge it in, and then they post it on the social media. Doesn't have enough engagement. Most people, I go and just see my own content. Like half the times, I don't see my own content
Yeah.
because it's I think it's uh, a scale, right? If it becomes too easy, even the person that is creating the content doesn't see it, and if it's too difficult, it just never gets done. So finding the right balance, saying, "Hey, get involved," but it should be easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's part of our goal in that kind of personalization aspect. In that, when you come to our platform, we want you feel like you're coming home, and
Yeah,
you're basically talking to someone you've talked to before,
yeah.
and they kind of know your preferences. If you do certain types of cuts and things, we're
Mhm.
trying to get those aspects in there.
Yeah, yeah, that is amazing. I think it's a game changer, right? Yeah, and I think it's the right timing as well. I think 2 years ago it might have been a little more challenging
Yeah,
before any of this came up, but I think right now there is so much more interest in AI. I think you're going to be hitting the market at the right time.
yeah. Yeah, it really is kind of an inflection point. And yeah, something that really struck me was, um, so I kind of told you my history from 1995 when I went to grad school. Um, Basically, there was like 20 years of, we were banging our heads against some really hard problems and things like that. And then, around 2015, basically, they figured out the convolutional neural networks, which um, are basically a form of attention. It was like before they were using these large, spaces where they were basically projecting things and trying to find effective projections and things like that.
Hmm.
But it wasn't really doing anything. It was just kind of making certain things more, certain features more significant and other features doing less. But the convolutional neural networks actually made it so that, in each column, uh, you're selecting one thing that's getting changed. So it was basically not changing everything in proportion. It was actually selecting certain things.
Hmm.
And that's where we started to get really interesting features. And that, I think, was the insight that really led to kind of the large language models. And the newest large language models have emergent capabilities that basically people didn't expect.
Hmm.
They're pretty simple at their heart. They're essentially taking a series of words, like
Hmm.
listening to you and I and trying to
Yeah.
predict the next word. And
Yeah.
there's a little bit of magic in there, like context and things like that. And they'll kind of predict, a few different paths, and some of them will become, not good. Um, and they'll basically do kind of this like search to
Yeah.
figure out what to say for, a little bit of the future and stuff. But the technology is really pretty basic. But they realized just by training it a lot, you could
Mhm.
start asking it questions, and it kind of had like almost a thought process. Maybe it had learned by seeing a lot of people describing these things,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they added reinforcement learning, and so that together with um, the embedding spaces that they've got that
Hmm.
allow you now to, you can ask for animals and you'll get all sorts of animals, or you can say Africa and
Hmm.
animals, and you basically can reference, in that embedding space,
Hmm.
you're you can find a subspace that's all the animals in Africa. And
Hmm.
uh, those
Yeah.
those technologies are, you know, basically the core of what a lot of the companies are doing right now. And
Hmm.
because of the way our field was, they're very attainable because
Hmm.
I think computer vision also led the field a little bit in openness. Um,
Hmm.
it used to be everything you did, you had to put out there, and like IEEE
Yeah.
and IEEE owned it. No one could go get papers without paying IEEE a fee, which meant, someone in, India and who doesn't
Yeah.
have a lot of resources basically couldn't see the research.
Yeah.
But the computer vision community and the learning like NeurIPS and things like that opened
Hmm.
up research and set an expectation that when you publish about something, that you will explain it sufficiently and you will put the results out. And there's a huge bonus if you want to try and publish things for
Hmm.
creating a new data set that people can use to compare themselves
Yeah.
against you. And that I think has driven a lot of this, crazy acceleration over
Yeah.
just the last, I would say really like 7 years.
Yeah, yeah. I think if I stereotype a little bit, I think the world is headed more towards personalization, more towards fragmentation. There used to be like car rental companies. Now there is Turo, like an individual can rent
Mhm.
things. There used to be hotels. Now there is Airbnbs. The same thing needs to happen everywhere, right? Like technology should be able to like personalize things in a way without diluting or without compromising the integrity of stuff. So the same thing probably is happening in research and publishing, where more people can actually collaborate without diluting, saying this is just a piece of junk that has no backing behind it. If we just need to ensure the quality is there, and then we can make it a little easier and more open, and it just leads to a much larger and happier place.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about you. Like, where do you see computer vision in the next 5 years? What do you like to do? Where would you like to see things move forward in the next 5 years?
That's a good question. Obviously, I want to see video editing. Uh, I see a future in which people, without a huge amount of resources, can
Mm-hmm.
can create as well as those with lots of resources.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it. There's been a few movies that have come out that have been kind of budget films where
Yeah.
people put together things without the
Oh yeah.
$30 million budget and the giant
Yeah.
actors. I think that creative venue is going to open up and be more hospitable to people who just are brilliant. And uh, to be clear, I don't think computers are going to take that over. I feel like, if there's a show you like, if you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
you probably like it because it's engaging and you get attached to the characters themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They have these core personalities and these interactions that are interesting, and if it's a series, that each, episode has different themes and they go back to kind of like core themes and things like that. I think that's the level where, I don't think we will be replacing human beings at that kind of like high level creative thing. But if you have a brilliant idea and you can, figure out what you want the main character to be like that,
Mhm.
um, that's going to change. And also, in general, in this area, I feel like there's going to be a lot of personal assistance. I was actually very interested to see a company out there that I was thinking had to happen. Basically, a tutor. Um,
Mhm.
so I think the technology is ripe to make it so that you can do it right now. You can, pay for ChatGPT and just have a conversation with it about something you want to learn about.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I think having a personalized I think that both of them, right? Personalized entertainment and personalized tutoring. I think there's just so much potential in both of them. Saying, hey, I like to see an action movie which has motorcycles in it versus somebody else might like a car. If we can create the same storyline with two different things, yeah, that would be really cool. And then if there was any way for, let's say, a couple to sit together and enjoy a movie, but they both have a different vision of what they are seeing, and then having a conversation with each other of what they saw. Hilarious.
yeah, yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting opportunities. And like I said, I think you know I'm not in my dad used to tell the stories about punch cards, but
Yeah.
when I got into computers, people were trying to optimize like machine code. It's like
Mhm.
move this value into the left part of the register and this value into the right part of the register and
Yeah.
we'll add them together to get an optimal, add speed or something like that.
Yeah.
And now you can download Python. Uh, you can
Yeah.
pip install a language model and you can
Yeah.
make a chat bot by just following a web page that,
Yeah.
that gives you the code.
Yeah.
You're off and running on a completely new technology. And I think, this could be pretty disruptive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even on the education, right? Like it's this crazy yeah, education and even insurance, I would say. Like my daughter ends up learning math in some extra classes, and then she's also learning the same thing in school. Maybe she already knows something. Why is she learning the same thing three times?
Yeah. Yeah.
The same with insurance. Like I probably have insurance coverage for the same thing multiple times. My health insurance if I'm going on a cruise, my health insurance might be covering the same insurance. I might have my credit card giving me special coverages, and then I still go ahead and buy that extra travel insurance. I'm like, why? If like, and it's just that it's so complicated. I don't want to deal with it. If somebody could like figure it out and personalize it, say, hey, I already have this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. On the education, I kind of, if you've hired people and you've had people working for you and stuff, the best situation is where you can find a person that is both adept and interested in doing something.
Yeah.
You get them in there and once you get them spun up, it's magical. Like
Yeah.
that one employee could be, like five times more productive than someone
Yeah.
else. And, you know, so if we can personalize that experience of
Mhm.
education to
Yeah.
basically allow people to kind of find their own niche, the thing that gets them excited and be able to pursue it, I think that
Yeah.
has huge potential. I don't know what it means for, you know, colleges and things like that, how
I
that
think
can
it's the same. I think it's going to be the same as everything else, right? We think that generative AI will replace developers. I don't think so. There will still be a teacher needed to like make sense of this thing. It's just a tool finally, right? To do something. But imagine having a one like if the teacher to student ratio is like 1:10 right now. It could convert to closer to 1:1 or 1:1.5 because one teacher is able to just oversee, but the computer program is converting and that same content at a state where the recipient is at, like at the level where they are.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that in management too. I think the tools, we could have an assistant listening to our conversation right now. And at the end, it would basically say, you talked about this, and here are the 5 action items that need to be addressed. And then next week, it can remind you and look at your email and things like that. I use AI for
Cool.
that.
That is amazing. I love where the vision you have for AI and what is possible with this. So yeah, and it was really cool to like imagine where things could be with this. So thanks for sharing that. So yeah, and just as we are almost concluding the episode, like are there any other like final words of wisdom that you would like to share with the audience?
I would say always be learning. Um, you know, I I have, even the people who I knew when I was younger, who thought they weren't smart. Somehow they knew every sports team and they could keep track of all the stats and
Yeah,
things like that. So if you could harness that, you know, in the area of AI, I think the potential is limitless.
yeah. And if somebody is interested in learning more about this, like where should they start? Like how does if somebody is just fresh out of college, they have not done any AI trainings, what is a good starting point for somebody to enter?
I would say just look, just it's changing year to year, you know,
Yeah.
month to month actually. I would say just look up a tutorial online for making a chatbot and start
Okay.
there.
Okay. More on the application side.
And it's like 5 steps. You basically have to like install Python, install the packages you're going to use, write the basic script,
Mhm.
get it running, and you're basically off to the races from that
Oh,
point.
yes, sounds great. So yeah, everyone, bring your ideas. The tools and solutions are already available, so it's a great place to start. So thanks, Chris. What's the best way somebody can reach you?
So I guess the best place is at the your.move platform,
Okay.
or they can find me on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
grab me there. Just Chris Stauffer. I think there aren't too many Chris Stauffers. I've got the whole history at MIT on there,
Yeah.
things like that. So you should
Yeah.
be able
It was easy to find. Yeah. Like once I looked up, it was easy to find you. So I think it's the first one that showed up.
yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Chris, for taking your time on a busy Saturday morning and spending time sharing your valuable journey and insights and your vision with us today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Amish.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Main Street Minds. Want to share your journey with our audience? Head over to mainstreetmindspodcast.com/guest to apply.